Hey guys, Slacker here. If it wasn't made evident by now, the most sociopolitically relevant game of the year recognizes neither quality nor scale alone. It's a rigorous, year-long search that concludes when I feel as though a potential winner ticks off an alternative criteria than how almost anyone plays video games, inscribed in stone tablets deep within the Slack Shack which doesn't exist. And 2023 was a doozy of perilous highs and underwhelming lows. We've had an extremely big bet that everyone said is at most okay. We've had a couple little engines that could. We had nearly back-to-back worst game ever nominees. We had an encapsulation of big company beef that has played out in courts the whole year. And we have a game that, in aesthetic and in content, should actually be the most sociopolitically relevant game of 2023 because of its dreary urban setting reminiscent of Eastern blocks, but I figured it would actually be way more appropriate to ignore it. So that leaves Hyenas. The most sociopolitically relevant game of 2023 is one that never officially released to the public at all. To explain this game, and to explain why you are currently not seeing footage of it on your screen right now, we have to go back to the halcyon year of 2022. I saw an ad for free alpha testing of a new game developed by Creative Assembly, makers of a bunch of fucking Total War games and Alien Isolation, and to be released by Sega. Hyenas takes place in a dystopian future where old mementos of Sega's past are somehow worth keeping under lock and key. You and a team of two others descend on some spaceship mall type thing to break into these secured vaults and then evac out. The catch is you'll be competing with at least two other teams and AI-controlled security guards to get out with the most goodies. It's a PvPvE looter hero squad-based shooter royale, and I was interested in it. Sign me up. I got a big blast of the movie Smoking Aces. If you haven't seen that movie, I couldn't really tell you if it's worth watching at all. I think I guess it's okay. But basically, a bunch of hitmen descend on one hotel to capture a man with a huge price on his head, facing off against each other and the security station there to protect the VIP. Up until Hyenas, it probably would have come to mind first as another piece of media that would fit pretty much wholesale into video game mechanics. I figured the bots could provide a nice X factor that could level the playing field between teams with different skills and abilities. Like the parable of the want of a nail, the smallest thing that you cannot control could throw an otherwise perfect execution of a plan into a tailspin. I was selected for the first round of alpha testing in the spring of 2022. I installed it, booted in some matches, and wasn't impressed. I will read in full the criticism that I left when asked for feedback that I have saved here. I am fascinated by the core concept of crews descending on one location with AI-controlled enemies to steal loot, confront one another, and make their exit. What I disliked about this game goes against this concept. I admit that I'm not the best at FPSs, so the way I find fun is to try to find other ways to contribute to the team winning. I don't think the game rewards that process. My experience was searching around confused for a vault while one teammate bolts off, gets confronted by a firefight against a rival crew, and we all get killed in under 3 minutes of playtime. Never once was I able to reuse the respawn station. I don't see how the zero gravity gimmick adds anything to the experience. I'm not compelled to refine my playstyle in the sandbox mode because that's simply uninteresting. In all honesty, the most interesting part of the game was playing as a drag queen with a shotgun. Other than that, it was about being confused, lost, getting downed, then killed, and I don't see a reason that would compel me to revisit that experience. To elaborate on that further, the area for you to plunder, the whole spaceship, seemed incredibly large and laid out with respect to gameplay and not like how an actual human would design or navigate the space. The big gimmick of Hyenas was that they had a zero gravity mode, and I felt that added basically nothing. The zero gravity areas were limited to these big ass hallways and open areas that wouldn't have helped nor hindered your ability to get shot. Adding to this, I will say that I was very, very wrong about the PvE component, as waves of spongy ass AI bots trying to stop you from entering a vault were not thrilling, not compelling, nothing more than annoying. I actually think it would be better for fewer vaults and to emphasize PvP, even though we never won a confrontation. Average round time for this loser was about 3 to 4 minutes out of a match with a much longer time limit. So yeah, I sucked at Hyenas, but I asked to please listen to me. Because you have here a new player that might be interested in your title being their game. I'm awful at shooters, but I could become good at Hyenas, especially if there are mechanics in place to alternatively contribute to team success. Is that not what this is all about? This is not Team Deathmatch. This is a game where you could live or die by the success of the least qualified member of your squad. So I would keep that in mind. I'm not so presumptuous to think that a company would take direction from me at all, despite the fact that you are asking for it by basically offloading your QA to your prospective player base, but I might just be naive enough to assume developers would not release just another shooter onto a very saturated market. Anyway, I stepped away. Months later, I was asked to participate in another alpha test. I declined. I was probably playing Knockout City. You remember Knockout City, right? It's a 3-on-3 dodgeball game. Hit someone twice to knock them out, 10 knockouts for a round, best of 3 rounds wins the match. I have a working category in my mind for live service games around this time as pandemic-era games. Now, that could mean a lot. It could simply mean just games that you put way too much time into when you were sheltering in place, working your job, or attending classes at home, and bars and restaurants only offer takeout or dining outside. But I think of them as kind of wacky, kind of colorful, but almost all of them free to play in live service, perfectly designed for the sudden influx of players getting back into gaming now that they're stuck at home. At that time, it may have seemed that the market could possibly support a bunch of different titles that could not otherwise exist if people weren't buying cosmetics or premium battle passes. Knockout City, for instance, had a free beta week that I feel like everyone played, was released by EA for $20 only for no one to play it, and at this point was bought back by the developers to release on their own, free to play with an in-game shop and a battle pass. And it was really, really fun. Despite its flawed economic model, this is what I mean by alternate ways to help a team. I spent a lot of time in Knockout City, but I probably spent more time trying to figure out strategies to implement. You could be successful emphasizing passing, you could be sneaky, you could play it slow, you could even play rounds completely defensively, you could completely take advantage of specialty balls that each match may have. They gave you tools outside of just catching and throwing. Not so much with Hyenas. But then, bam, the dominoes started to fall. As the pandemic leavened, people started going back to work and to school, as industries started rumbling again, and as the world fucking blew up and was consumed with fire and water like twice, things started getting expensive, and a major contraction could be seen in the horizon. Going through the games that have shut down in 2023 with no single player to bolster their offering, and it's pretty staggering. Marvel's Avengers, Crossfire X, Rumbleverse, The Cycle Frontier, and yes, Knockout City, with Multiverses and X Defiant being in a more ambiguous state of development. As before is still the case now, pretty much Fortnite, Apex Legends, Rocket League, etc., etc. Only Fall Guys seems to come to mind as a game that released during the pandemic that can still actually be played now. So imagine my surprise when I got an email from Hyenas telling me about the open beta. NDA lifted, feel free to stream and make content, and as a matter of fact, here's some keys for some friends. Okay, let's see how the game changed in roughly the year that had passed since I last played it. And yeah, it felt just as good as months ago when I complained to all my friends about it, now with others seconding and thirding my opinions on the game. My OBS sputtered out a slideshow of unusable footage that I couldn't fix before we all decided we were done with it, never to return. So, at first I was under NDA and didn't think it was worth talking about, and the second time was due to us leaving the game before I could have anything worthwhile, and then still not thinking it was worth talking about. But then, almost immediately afterwards, the bell tolled for Hyenas. Of course, I respect the effort of individuals working on a game. It's not just getting paid, but labor amounting to a sudden closure and nothing is an awful result. But Hyenas is a product of a time that had a very potent middle and a very long tail, one that we may be experiencing for years. So nothing gives me more pleasure than to announce Hyenas with all of its ambitions to capitalize on a market that tech thought was going to be there for a while, painted with nostalgia and quick shoot-bang plundering, only to go up in smoke when ugly economic realities entered the picture as the most socio-politically relevant game of 2023. To further accentuate the criticism, I held a little Q&A with the devs of Hyenas that are certainly not just members of my already extant group doing some improv. You felt what I felt, right? That time to kill for the Murphs, the bots and the levels, was way too high.
Oh yeah,
no, they just
seriously. I was gunning down, especially those drone things, or they were flying. God damn.
Listen, I can down a player in 2 shots with like the shitty sidearm shotguns, right? But the bot, I do that to a bot, and it'd be like, nah, give me more.
And it's not only that, so like they're hard to beat, right? But they spawn them in like a wave all around you in one specific spot. And like there's just so much, like you would turn a corner and there's like 3 like huge like robot things, and then there's like 5 guys, and you go around the. It's overwhelming, and then you have to deal with other players which are already good at this game. I
don't know how they'd expect you to kill all the bots before they call backup. Like, I distinctly remember like one play, and I think it's more because of the layout of the map than anything. But I tried to get to like the 3rd one, and I was just stuck. I couldn't get to it in time before it called backup because of the layout of the map. And it wasn't even in one of those like 0G areas, so you couldn't even argue that it's like, oh, you could just float up to this floor and go get him. No, there was no other way to get there outside of this like really long pathway that didn't make any sense.
Okay, can I add something, Slack, real quick? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's a beta, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, you never made it as a game. How can you say, well, it's just a beta? Well, what did that beta achieve? Nothing. It achieved absolutely zero.
2 to 4.
Yeah, it was so bad that it shut down.
Yeah, your
and
beta was so
committed
shit.
Suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
well, you know what? You're gay.
What do you have against that?
Yeah, hyenas, Devin.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, what do you...
Yo, wait. Aren't you the 12-year-old in Among Us? Yo, we
Hey, you can't bring that back.
This guy's
You
channel.
can't bring that back. You can't bring that back. You can't bring that back.
Content creator, and we went through his channel to make sure that he was approved for this. Aren't you the guy in Among Us? Aren't you that guy?
Editing Slack add in a clip from Wolf in Among Us.
Your names, just call me by my name. It's Wolf, not Wolf or Wood.
Rude.
Oh, it's not even me.
Why did you vote?
Bad vote.
There was literally no evidence.
It's
Bad
not
vote.
even me. I swear, Blue's like, oh, he kind of sus, and then everybody vote me. Like, are you joking?
Are these guys
I
in their
voted
own?
Choco.
Oh, these guys are in their own server, just like
Oh,
talking shit.
Oh, by the way,
no.
by the way, when you say you're bad at shooters, can you add the just a clip of the first Arsenal video?
Where do you even come from? Fuck.
Coca-Cola.
What the hell am I Shut up with your random tacos.
Like, what's even the point of having characters with their own ability? Why not just have different characters and like whatever they bring to the table is whatever they bring? Why even bother with special abilities like building a shield or whatnot? Because granted, we never experienced that. And furthermore, I don't think I've ever seen it.
So, I don't know. I formerly worked. I used to work at Activision Blizzard before, but during that time, I was there to observe the development of Overwatch. And from what I gathered, people like icons. They like that one character. That one character is so. For most games might have only one of those characters. We sought out to make a bunch of those characters. So, recognizable, and at any moment, if you saw a squad, you know exactly what they're going to do. Apex Legends does this. During the time, and even today still, this is a prevalent way of having characters be made. And frankly, if you keep this up, I am going to report you for... And none of us would want that. So, watch for your step. You're on thin ice, buddy.
So, this is a little bit more superficial. So, why is there so much nostalgia IP in this game? Like,
I shall simply answer that with another question of why shouldn't we use a bunch of nostalgia bait in our game?
I'm assuming that the people that are the audience that would be drawn to the game are probably under 25 and have no idea what I Want Candy by Bow Wow Wow is, or have no idea of what Wham is besides Last Christmas during the holidays.
I know. Okay, the counterpoint's like, I'm gonna be devil's advocate. I know all that stuff, right? And I'm a pretty young person, right?
You're a Weezer fan. You don't count. Anyway, to answer your question.
Buddy,
to answer your question, if you look at the current scene of live action service games during the pandemic, there was you had Fortnite for the kids, you had Call of Duty, which, let's be honest, that's mostly teenagers and adults that can't let go of the 360. There was not many live service games that were truly developed with an older audience in mind. Remember, you grew up, you played video games growing up, and there's a lot more of the adult audience that grew up. You have late, even early 80s to today, and so instead of just developing another generic game with its standard whatevers, we want to invoke that nostalgia for those. Essentially, the nostalgia is not intended for the primary, in quotes, gaming audience, but for the older people in the gaming audience. The game, it was not. It's difficult to make those, and in case you didn't notice, it's not exactly like Sega's doing well.
Oh yeah.
So,
it's been a long time since the last fucking Yakuza game.
Yakuza
I respect the shit that you're willing to say, hey, we're not doing too hot right now. Not a lot of devs would have that humility.
Well, you see, I got fired a bit ago, so I don't.
Oh, you don't care. Okay.
I also appreciate you breaking your NDA. Did you guys have any, did you guys actually think this was going to succeed?
I mean, look, there's a reason why I left right before it released. Because it looks better to say that you quit than you got fired.
Yep.
Because you downsized, because you had the biggest flop that nobody knows about.
I like to think at one point in time that we thought it was going to succeed, and then those deadlines started hitting, and it went from, yeah, we can make this a really polished product, to, oh god, oh fuck, we're in crunch time right now. I do not care if you haven't had a break in 12 hours. You will work until you no longer have fingertips.
Okay. Isn't that what Manager Joanne said to us when we were developing that? Isn't that exactly what she said verbatim?
They didn't care what state the beta was in. They said, you will release this, or, well, I know where you live, and I didn't want them to elaborate on that.
So, imagine the game as a ship, and it is sinking, but there's no lifeboats and there's no other ship. So, do you stop developing the ship and die, or do you do everything you can to patch up the holes and just hope that it floats a bit longer?
The last thing I need is an Activision Blizzard employee telling me what I can and can't say.
You have any idea how many of those things I sat through? Don't do this, don't do that, and you're gonna tell me that I don't know my HR stuff? You need to watch your privilege there, buddy. Alright? This game is an icon to the dying industry of live service when the pandemic was finally coming to a close. People lost their disposable income, either because they're going back outside or things just got too expensive, and simultaneously, the game was rushed and put out to try to catch that market before it fucking farted away in the wind. And so, it is perfect. People ran out of money on both sides to support the game, and the game died before it had any chance of going anywhere. Yeah, at least our game gets remembered as blowing up before it started.
Oh,
it's like if the Titanic sunk in the dock.
Yeah. Well, that's it. A little fun, I hope, and hopefully you got some laughs out of that. But it is interesting how what we saw and experienced kind of matched up with what actual developers actually said about Hyenas. Anyway, thank you for stopping by. Hopefully no other Trios team-based shooter has released that primarily centers around plundering as a core mechanic of the gameplay. That's it.